on whether the CIA is planning any.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Another Chart Addicts live New York session stream. Purpose of these streams is we're going to be covering global markets. I'm going to be looking at a few trade ideas. Personally, I don't trade on Fridays, so I won't be taking any live trades, even though I did take one last night. Side note. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover global news. Trump basically declared war on Venezuela, pretty big deal. We can talk about some updates on some geopolitical stuff, and of course, we can talk about the direction that monetary policy is heading due to all these global changes. Not only is there BRICS, but there's other competitors popping up that are trying to start global coalitions against the US dollar. We'll talk about those implications later in the show. Make sure you guys drop a like and subscribe. If you guys are tuning in for the first time, welcome. All right. So we're going to be, right now, we're kind of going through an update right here. Breaking Points, one of my favorite kind of news sources. We have Sagar Andretti here giving a quick rundown of what's happening in Venezuela. I think this is a pretty basic overview, but for all intents and purposes, this should kind of catch everybody up on what's happening in Venezuela. So we're going to let that play out while we wait for the market to correct here at the market open. And then we're going to be playing the live stream of Trump and Zelensky live in the Oval Office. Right now, they're going through some BS. Wait, where's the stream? Oh, right here. Yeah, they're still going through some BS. I think they're doing a press conference here about immigration or about what is this? God knows what. Once Zelensky and Trump are in the Oval Office, there's going to be a spectacle. I think we'll get to see it live. That way, we won't have to just trust those sneaky little snippets that come out after all the news events. We can watch it for ourselves, make up our own minds because we're all adults here. Okay? If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the chats. If you guys are watching on YouTube and you guys want me to look at a specific instrument, trade idea, or answer a specific question, drop a super chat and we'll get to those at the very end.
These specific operations, but the development comes as the U.S. military is planning its own possible explanation. So one of the immediate analyses I saw of this is that if you look at the way this all works is this could be some sort of limited hangout thing to get in the New York Times, specifically to make, because it's the front page story. Now, maybe they just get it as a leak. I'm a little bit suspicious. I tend to think all of this is about a public pressure campaign to try to get him to step down voluntarily. Because it's one of those where, look, the CIA is scary, especially Latin America, right? We have a long legacy of trying to do stuff down there. You have the military campaign, you have the boats, you have the president not ruling it out. It seems to me that this was supposed to be tough. I'm not excusing it, by the way, because I still think it's completely insane. And of course, you could still follow through with it. It seems to me, or on the immediate term, that it was leaked intentionally to try to ramp up the pressure. Regardless, though, this is a great gift to Maduro, in my opinion, because now what can he do? Every time that there's an opposition leader, CIA. If somebody tries to attack you, CIA. Just kill him, right? And the people will say, look at these people. They're meddling in our government. Of course, they're trying to kill me. They're trying to overthrow me. This is like the Latin American strongman argument for the last 50 years down there. It's like, oh, it's always CIA, or sometimes it is. But in this case, what he's doing is actually making it so that Maduro can blame all of Venezuela's problems on the United States, which he's been doing for the last decade. But even more importantly, I think here is the Syria, like from day one, I was like, I'm very scared. This looks regime change. And even,
which, by the way, this is the same thing that happens in every regime change kind of war. If we look at like Gaddafi in Libya, we look at Saddam Hussein, we look at the Shah of Iran, all of them are basically like if it's a South American political interest or geopolitical interest, we just say it's war on drugs. Then we can invade any country in South America. Venezuela happens to have the largest oil deposits out of any country in the world. So obviously they're the number one target. The Maduro regime is not friendly to the US. And so the US is trying to back what they believe to be the truly democratically elected leader of Venezuela. Anyways, the same thing happens in every regime change. We create a power vacuum by removing the dictator. Then there's instability, civil war, and infighting for someone to fill that power vacuum, which creates way more chaos than existed under the dictator, creates an immigration crisis because a lot of people have to basically become refugees and leave their land. We saw this, like over 1 million Venezuelans have already had to leave. We've seen this with Libyans. We've seen this with Syria. We've seen this with Palestine. Every time that you go and create a regime change conflict, there's a power vacuum, creates more chaos. There's a refugee crisis that ends up creating a burden on completely unrelated countries. If it's South America, we just pretend, we just say war on drugs. That's our excuse. If it's Middle East, we either say terrorists or we say weapons of mass destruction. Oh, they got a nuke. Oh, there's some jihadist terrorists. Now we can go invade any Middle Eastern country. If it's South American, oh, they're bringing drugs into the US. If you guys look at the statistics and we can look at them together here, Venezuela is one of those, like the least, how do I say this? They import the least amount of drugs into the US out of any of the other countries. Apparently, the majority of the US drugs are coming from the Pacific coast of South America, which Venezuela doesn't have access to. So this is clearly about the oil deposits and about this unfriendly US government of Maduro. This is clearly a regime change operation. And apparently, we've kind of boasted we have over 10,000 troops in the area. We put that, what is it called? We put that carrier on the coast of Venezuela with 4,000 Marines on it. And I think that there's a total between that and those 8 ships that are now positioned in the Caribbean and those stationed in Puerto Rico, around 10,000 troops ready to go. This sounds like war. This sounds like Trump is bombing these random fishing boats, which they claim they're drug boats, but we don't really know, off the coast of Venezuela to basically, how do I like they're just trying to egg on the Maduro regime into responding. That way we have an excuse to go in there and commit the regime change. So right now they're intimidating and they're trying to just basically drag Maduro into a response. Once the Maduro regime responds, they're cooked, which they probably won't do. So and we have heard very little about this on the news. I've been trying to look for mainstream news outlets. It's all just propaganda. I haven't been able to find anything substantive about the people on these boats, whether they're actually drug dealers or just fishermen. Like, we don't know. And the White House has barely felt the need to communicate any of this. So for now, we have very little information about what's happening, and it seems like we're being dragged into an actual regime change war, which is a pretty big deal. So
Juan David Rojas, who we had on, he was like, "Oh, I don't know. It's like could be just be like stupidity, right? In terms of it's striking the drug boats." Now, I don't think it's deniable. From the military operations to the bounty to this authorizing CIA action against Venezuela, the fact that Marco Rubio and Miller are running the White House and the Pentagon, right? So keep in mind, Rubio again. Rubio has somehow convinced Trump that this Venezuela thing is connected to drugs. There's not a scrap of evidence of that. It's complete bullshit, literally bullshit, according to DEA statistics. Because especially in all the interviews, they mention fentanyl. There's 0% fentanyl comes from Venezuela, again, according to the DEA. Now, if you look at what's really going on here, it could be about oil. It could be about a particular South Florida constituency, which has backed Rubio his entire life and political career. The fact that Rubio has posted photos of Maduro next to Gaddafi. I mean, this is scary because this could create a chaotic political vacuum. Even if he did step down voluntarily, who the fuck is going to come next, right? What's going to happen then? And then we're going to march down in there and we're going to back some government like the Juan Guaido situation. Was humiliating. It was a disaster.
So, in case you guys aren't like too well versed on geopolitics, there's something in geopolitical strategy called the Libya model, which, by the way, Libya was a complete disaster on the behalf of America trying to do the regime change and completely failing. And the Libya model is basically you take a country that has a dictator where the population is already upset with them. And then there's already starting to be protests in the streets about some illegitimacy of the government. You add fuel to the fire through social media, through propaganda campaigns, and maybe you like put people in the streets, you pay some protesters, like you basically just try to add fuel to this already growing anger towards this dictator. And then you try to create some kind of revolution in the country by getting close to the people in power, like the people who are the closest to the dictator, trying to infiltrate them through CIA or through other covert operations, and then basically trying to get them to flip on the main guy. That model has failed about 20 times in the Middle East. And they want to do it again to try to get rid. And it failed in Ukraine too. Like we put in the Yanukovych government, 2014. I think it was 2014, and then we basically removed the Democrat. Oh, sorry, the country of Ukraine had a democratic election, and they elected the Yanukovych government. The U.S. removed this democratically elected government and put in Zelensky. And then now this country is completely decimated after having been crushed by Russia, by being used as a political pawn of NATO to basically like just try to fight Russia and keep them busy. And just we just sacrificed all the Ukrainians. So like this whole Libyan model of adding fuel to the fire of this existing resentment in a country to try to push for a regime change has failed, and we're still fucking doing it. So clearly, Trump is getting some shit advice. Marco Rubio, I mean, having Marco Rubio in your cabinet, like Trump didn't learn a goddamn thing from his first term. I'll tell you that much. He has some complete machine stooge, an agent of the Matrix, Marco Rubio, right next to him. Anyways, that's the Libya model. Felt you guys should have some context. We are about 13 minutes away from the market open. I'm waiting for a correction. Members, I'll be honest, it's probably going to look more like this. Double bottom here. But because it's a Friday, I'd much rather be safe than sorry, and I'd rather aim for that 88 zone. All right? If you guys really want to get specific here, you can find the 88 on the top side by just dragging the fib down and then reversing it. And you get the same zone. Okay? So I drew it body to wick, regular, and then I also used the reverse fib just to double check. We already have a double bottom. This thing could continue to rip to the upside, but because it's a Friday, rather be safe than sorry.
And I don't want to hear jack shit about migration from any form.
Okay, Wody. Let's see what we have here. Zelensky, not yet. Nope. All right, let's move on to Paul Tudor Jones is talking about the AI bubble. It's a full debate. So Paul Tudor Jones runs the Tudor Fund. He's one of the best hedge fund traders of our generation. Like if you guys are a day trader and you really want to look up to the best of the best, you really want to look up to someone like the all-stars, Paul Tudor Jones has to be on that list. Now, he comes from traditional kind of Wall Street, calling in your broker, having them fight for your orders, kind of that time. But he's been able to adapt, and his fund is still thriving today. So he's got a lot to tell us. The AI bubble, I'll kind of let Paul Tudor Jones explain, but all the valuations for the AI companies got way too overvalued, just to kind of use a circular definition here. And it's kind of resembling the dot-com bubble, where anything that had a dot-com next to it back in 2000 and 2001 was getting funded with big money, even though they didn't have a product on market that they could sell. And so right now, AI is kind of the same thing. You put whatever company name .ai, and it was getting funded way more than it needed to. So we look at we look at the market capitalization of a private company or a public company in terms of future cash flows. So you take the present value of all the future cash flows. Usually it's like maybe 3 years or 5 years down the line. And then there's a multiple added to it. A multiple meaning like, let's say that your company is going to make $5 billion over the next 5 years. But the washing machine industry, like this home appliance industry, trades at a 5x multiple. That means whatever your valuation is, you're just going to 5x that. The company will be valued at $25 billion, even though it really is only going to make $5 billion the next 5 years. Tech companies have been trading at insane multiples. Let's take NVIDIA, for example, or NVIDIA. NVIDIA doesn't really have a global large-scale product on market that can get them to $1 trillion. Not even close. But somehow they're valued at $2 or $3 trillion. And so the amount of money that's being pumped into these companies does not match their actual ability to generate that cash flow and actually be valued at that. And I think that the bubble is bursting. And that's why we've been seeing this correction on a lot of the high risk assets, crypto, high beta stocks, especially the tech sector, NAS 100 being the biggest culprit. And so we have been seeing a correction on these things. Now, do I really think this is the end of the AI bubble? No. I still think there's a lot more to go. But someone like Paul Tudor Jones should give us some insight, and I'll let him take it from here.
Conference tomorrow. There's still a few tickets that are available. We have some great speakers.
He's pushing an event? Bro, stop it.
I'll be interviewing Dario Amodei, who's the CEO of Anthropic. So actually, he's the person that should be answering your AI questions, not me. I can't wait. There's so many I want to ask him on AI. We've also got Ken Griffin and Jamie Dimon. It's going to be a fantastic and a very informative and educational day.
Will all of those guys participate in Pick a Ticker? Because this is a contest you do with Bloomberg, right?
Right.
JP Morgan Times Robinhood Investor Conference? I don't think this is it. Paul Tudor Jones. My bad, guys. I'm trying to see what this event is. I'm trying to get some tickets. Oh, it is the Robinhood event. Interesting. Date and time to be determined? What? Interesting. It probably already happened. When did this video drop? 2 days ago. Interesting. Okay.
So Pick a Ticker is you pick one long, one short. It's a 6-month contest. Think of fantasy football meets the markets, because this year we're going to allow you to change your picks. I think 2 or 3 times during the 6-month process. So
This is already giving me a bad feeling. This feels very, very scammy.
you put in $10,000. It's going to go to charity. 75% is going to go to Robinhood to help the least among us in New York City, which sadly has
Our,
New York City have a
you said this is like October of 1999. But after that, as you pointed out, the stock market doubled. We had a drop in October, like an 11% intraday drop, but then the stock market doubled to March of 2000. Are we still in line for a doubling of this market?
Well, it's so funny because you'd mentioned that 54% of fund managers think that we're in an AI bubble. If it's a bubble, it's a small one. If you just think about, and again, how do you actually define bubbles? If you think about the bubbles of the past 3 or 4 decades, the Nikkei in 89, NASDAQ in 99, biotech 2000, just after 2011, 12, China 2007, all those were 400 to 600% gains. The NASDAQ's up 200% off the bottom. So I don't know whether we're going to blow off like we did in 1999. Is it possible? Are all the ingredients in place? I think clearly they are. For me, the one thing that you can never, ever forget is that a year from today, assuming that the president gets his wishes, that the Fed funds rate's going to probably be in the 2.5. I think they would like to see it at 2.25. So I think 2.5, 2.75. Obviously, whoever the new Fed chair is going to have to be able to intellectually move that board, a majority of the board. He's probably, whoever the new Fed chair, let's say they've got 6 solid votes, so he'll have to find one more. And I don't think it'll be that hard to do. But if you're going to have 2.5% overnight rates or 2.75, that's a really compelling story for higher equity prices.
Well, not just that. I mean, you've got Neil Kasar on our opinion team yesterday laid out the argument that this is not the same as 1999 because these companies are so profitable, right? 95% of the S&P 500 is expected to post earnings growth next year, and the average earnings growth is 16%. It's obviously a lot more for the Mag 7 or the Great 8. Plus, you don't have the same kind of leverage that you had back then. You have less than 100% debt to equity, and in 1999, it was more than double that.
Right. Well, the only thing I'd say is I don't think you've got the leverage necessarily in the corporate balance sheets yet. You clearly have leverage within the equity ecosystem. And by that, I mean, you just had a proliferation and explosion in derivative products. I want to say that levered ETFs are up 250% since the 2022 bottom. And I want to say that there's 400 or 500 with another couple of hundred in the pipeline. So you're clearly
This sounds exactly like 2008. This just gave me the worst feeling in my stomach. I'm gonna be like Michael Burry, and I'm gonna go through every single one of these leveraged ETFs after this stream, because something about this seems extremely wrong.
creating derivative leverage, whether it's in the options market, we see single stock options, we just see options activity exploding. Everywhere you look, there's greater leverage, again, in the equity infrastructure for what has become really trader nation. We have the highest percentage equity holdings by individuals in history. We have, again, more levered activity. You don't see it in margin debt because margin debt is actually an old anachronistic tool. You see it more so in the options markets. You see it more so in the levered ETFs. So it's somewhere down the road, a little similar. I don't think we're there yet, but somewhere down the road, there's going to be some real issues with that.
Nonetheless, you're long now, right? I mean, at least last time we spoke to you in June, you said your portfolio would be long stocks. You said you'd be long gold. You said you'd be long Bitcoin. And
Just a heads up, about 2 minutes out from the market open. What I'm expecting is probably a big push to the upside first, and then a crash. Or if the market starts to pull down first, right, we'll probably make it back down to the Tokyo session lows and then continue. So whichever way the market opens, the kind of like the real trend move is going to be the opposite, right? So if we see a big spike up at the market open, then we're probably going to get that wick back down over the next 20, 30 minutes. Obviously keep in mind the higher time frames. We have our range, we have our sell zone at the top, the buy zone at the bottom. But if we're looking at this market open trade here, not really to trade right at the market open, but within 20, 30 minutes after, this is the Tokyo session range that we're looking at. We've obviously had a push to the downside. We have not cleared the highs just yet. So sells are the most valid move, just kind of in the immediate term. Personally, I'd rather wait for the buys. So if the market does start to crash back down, I might look for buys down at this area, but sells are the most valid kind of immediate move. So market's going to open in the next probably 30 seconds, and we'll start to see that magic in action.
those have been great picks. Check out this chart, right? Gold alone is at 22%.
Sultan of Pips says, thanks for the stream. I always learn. Sultan of Pips, appreciate you hopping on. Appreciate you for the super chat, brother.
Gain, but all of them are well above zero. Do you hold on to that portfolio?
So I would take them one by one. I think for stocks, the critical time is going to be the last week here in October, and when we see the big tech earnings, as well as by that point in time, we'll have greater clarity on the resolution of the U.S.-China conflict. I would think that if the NASDAQ is higher going into early November, then you've got a chance for a real ramp in the last 2 months. What happens between now and then? I kind of think the market's going to be on the defensive until we get to, that's going to be a intersection of just so many really, really important data points. So that's going to be a critical time. They also have a Fed meeting that week. So I would think, my prior is that it will resolve to the upside. We'll focus on where Fed funds will be. The market will look ahead 6 to 9 months and focus on that. Bitcoin and gold are interesting. They're interesting as a pair in the sense that if I just look at since Liberation Day, you've had about $40 billion of inflows into a combination of Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, and you've had a like amount of inflows into the combination of gold and silver. But if you think about it, the vol adjusted 40 billion that goes into Bitcoin because it's had say five, six.
Yo, Giordano, are you on this call, bro? Where's Biggie Smalls? Nope. Damn. I want to give him a shout out. Whether this trade plays out or not, this is exactly what you want to be looking for when you're looking for the models. Now, location is very important. So if you look at the range, we have the top of the range here, the bottom of the range. Members, are we closer to the bottom, the top, or the middle? Like if I erased all the stuff and we just had our buys and our buy zone and our sell zone, are we closer to the top, the bottom, or the middle? All right, two-step got it. Two-step says the middle, right? So neutrality zone is neutral for a reason. Oh, Christine's on here. Maurice is on here. That's what I'm talking about. So neutrality means it could really go both ways. These are the riskiest of trades. Now, when you see a model happen at the discount zone, that's a really high confirmation for longs. When you see one of those sell models like this one, for example, where you kind of have this consolidation and then we didn't really have a fake to either side, but it basically will draw to that liquidity. It will just basically run to a zone of high selling interest, and then that's where it'll liquidate off. And same with the buying zone. So when it's in the middle, it usually is a riskier trade because it can go either way. And that's why personally, especially because it's a Friday, we're in the middle of a range, I would just use lower risk. The trade is still valid. It doesn't invalidate the trade because of all these different things. The strategy is still the strategy, but you do want to be mindful of your risk because you can expect higher volatility than usual. I guess that's a good way to put it.
Times the
Yo, Giordano, did you just hop on? Bro, shout out to you. I was just giving you props for this call out. I said whether this trade plays out or not, identifying the range, identifying the fib, kind of from the exact body to the wick, finding that precision entry. Good stuff. I know you found the longs on US 30, but same exact concept here for the sell side. Just Tokyo session, push to one side, 88.6, rinse and repeat.
vol of gold was really a much, much bigger bet on
Sam says Nvidia is valued at 4.5 trillion. Okay, yeah, the top is here. Maybe the AI bubble is about to burst. That's insanity. Bro, Nvidia is at 4.5 trillion. Hold on.
Crypto than it was on precious metals. And yet, gold has outperformed Bitcoin since that period in time. So clearly, retail has made a mistake in terms of trying to figure out which of the two debasement trades were going to outperform. And I have to admit, until a couple of weeks ago, I thought Bitcoin digital gold was going to outperform, again, the historic stores of value. I think they're both probably still good, but my guess is, again, we're here in the fourth quarter, momentum into the end of the year, that of those two, it appears that gold and silver are going to outperform crypto.
Oh my gosh.
I'm always going to be a trend trader. I'm always going to follow the momentum. And I'm not going to be so prideful that I'm going to try to outguess what the market's telling me.
But you do think that we continue to see inflation? Because I've been talking to Neil Dutta from Renaissance Macro. He's pushing back on this. He says inflation hawks need to seek help. But his main point, I think, is that housing, the shelter component is going to come down. He said, no.
4.5 trillion. Yeah, I think the AI bubbles, it's got to burst. This makes no sense. Like, what the hell is Microsoft selling that's going to make them $3.8 trillion? NVIDIA has a chance, let's say over like a 10-year span, but you don't usually bet on tech companies in 10-year spans. These are typically, like, these are longer horizon trades, but you do want to see some product market fit. You do want to see an actual product on market in a 2 to 3 year timeline. Like, when people were betting on Tesla, they were like, okay, he's going to launch the Model X in 2, 3 years. It did take longer than expected, but they didn't bet on Tesla thinking it was going to take 5 years. They bet on it thinking it was going to take 2. And so if there's a crack in the markets and people need money, people, I mean, these large scale institutions need to get some liquidity. So they have to sell some of their winning trades. These are all going to be the first things they cut because they're clearly up major on these investments.
Note last week, housing prices are likely declining. The fact that home buyer demand has declined.
Yeah, I'm second guessing these shorts already. This is nuts. Okay, so getting back to NASDAQ here, we're retesting that entry zone. I do think that we see a push slightly above. Personally, I'm not going to entertain this short only because of there's 3 things. Number 1, I don't trade Fridays. 2, we're pretty close to the bottom of the range. We just had this double bottom, and we're in the middle of the range. So this thing could really go either way. And then 3, I'd much rather wait for a pullback to this higher probability zone. Okay, so we're going to let this thing play out. I'll finish, I'm going to rewind this Paul Tudor Jones kind of, they call it a debate, but I don't really see any pushback here. And then hopefully we will get Trump and Zelensky. Is this Hakeem Jeffries?
Back from the speaker.
This is one of the dirtiest politicians in all of politics.
Republicans have gone radio silent since the Oval Office meeting that took place.
No, I don't want to corrupt my soul. We'll get back to this later. Okay. Paul Tudor Jones, I'm going to rewind this a bit and we'll continue to monitor NASDAQ here as we watch.
Going to be a intersection of just so many really, really important data points. So that's going to be a critical time. They also have a Fed meeting that week. So I would think, my prior is that it will resolve the ups.
Last thing, if you guys are watching on YouTube, just drop a like, subscribe, and comment. One or the other, just to kind of boost this thing out to more people. Let them know that we are live. What's up, Dabo?
They're interesting as a pair in the sense that if I just look at since Liberation Day, you've had about $40 billion of inflows into a combination of Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, and you've had a like amount of inflows into the combination of gold and silver. But if you think about it, the vol adjusted 40 billion that goes into Bitcoin, because it's had say 5-6 times the vol of gold, was really a much, much bigger bet on crypto than it was on precious metals. And yet gold has outperformed Bitcoin since that period in time. So clearly retail has made a mistake in terms of trying to figure out which of the 2 debasement trades we're going to outperform. And I have to admit, until a couple of weeks ago, I thought Bitcoin digital gold was going to outperform, again, the historic stores of value. I think they're both probably still good, but my guess is, again, we're here in the 4th quarter, momentum into the end of the year, that of those 2, it appears that gold and silver are going to outperform crypto. I'm always going to be a trend trader. I'm always going to follow the momentum. And I'm not going to be so prideful that I'm going to try to outguess what the market's telling me.
But you do think that we can.
Oh, brilliant advice from one of the best traders of our lifetime. Go ahead and rewind that.
Historic stores of value. And I have to admit, until a couple of weeks ago, I thought Bitcoin digital gold was going to outperform, again, the historic stores of value. I think
he just basically means he thought that Bitcoin was going to do better than gold. Gold is crushing right now. There is a massive kind of draw to it. Let's not get mistaken. Go back and look at the last 15 years of returns. You'd still be better off owning Bitcoin. And then let's look at the next 10 years of returns. You're probably better off owning Bitcoin. So he just wants all the Bitcoin to himself, and he's trying to push his gold portfolio. Bad, Paul. Don't do that. That's dishonest.
both probably still good, but my guess is, again, we're here in the 4th quarter, momentum into the end of the year, that of those 2, it appears that gold and silver are going to outperform crypto. You know, I'm always going to be a trend trader. I'm always going to follow the momentum. And I'm not going to be so prideful that I'm going to try to outguess what the market's telling me.
But you do think that we continue.
All right, sorry, but based on his criteria, if you want to be completely objective and you want to look at market returns, look at the momentum, and be a trend trader, nothing has had a better trend, return, and momentum than Bitcoin. Now, gold has been sitting at about $1,000 for like 50 years, and then all of a sudden there's a massive push. This is not because gold as an asset is more attractive. Right? I don't know if you guys have been seeing the commercials on YouTube, the Birch Gold Group and all these different gold sellers. People are trying to get rid of gold. They're trying to sell the top right now. The reason that gold is because look at all the assets that are pumping at the same time. Yes, we've had a correction on the high risk assets, but they all have been moving very correlated. Gold, NASDAQ, gold, equities, and crypto. Those three things are supposed to be counter correlated. They're supposed to be a hedge against each other that when one is doing good, the other one is not doing so well, etc. The reason that all would move up at the same time is because the underlying exponent, the currency that they're being priced in, aka dollars, is being devalued strategically. But if you devalue the dollar, asset prices go up. This is Trump's whole push to try to cut interest rates. I think the Trump administration and really just I think the federal government's plan is to debase the currency and basically inflate our way out of the debt. There's no way we're going to be able to pay off this debt. So if we just make the money worth less over time, then yeah, we might still owe $1 trillion, or we might still be $32 trillion in debt, but that'll only be like 12 trillion in future money. Just like a loaf of bread was 5 cents like 30 years ago. It's not like bread is now like 100 times more valuable than it was back then. We value it 100 times more. The value of the currency has been debased. And so now it costs, $4 to get a loaf at the grocery store. So this is basically why gold has been pumping, Sam, to kind of answer your question. And that's why Bitcoin will continue to to outperform. Because if you just debase the underlying quoted currency, aka the dollar, then now the only game is which one has a limited supply, gold or Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a fixed supply, gold doesn't, which means that Bitcoin's going to have a higher price and a higher sort of price growth, like the rate of change, momentum. All right, if you guys took those shorts, then you're looking pretty good. Once price reaches this kind of inverted head and shoulders, I'd look to take partials. And of course, if we break below, you would look for the 88.6 of this impulse, which I think that we're going to reject a little bit and then break. And then that lower zone is going to be perfect for those longs. Okay. This 88.6 buy is going to be like a TP1 kind of situation, but it's a pretty good scalp if anyone's interested.
To see inflation, because I've been talking to Neil Dutta from Renaissance Macro. He's pushing back on this to seek help. Main point, I think, is that housing, the shelter component is going to come down. And he said in a note last week, housing prices are likely declining. The fact that home buyer demand has declined, even as rates have dropped, suggests that a deflationary psychology has infected the housing market. You buy
Rates
that?
dropped by a quarter, by 25 basis points, by a quarter percentage. Like, are all of us going to go rush to buy houses because my mortgage rate went from 7.5 down to 7? How the fuck is this even a real question you're going to ask the number one financial mind? And he's not the number one financial mind, but he's damn sure on the Mount Rushmore of top traders of our lifetime. And you're going to sit there and bring this shit up? Why is housing demand not going up, even though we cut rates by... But the Fed funds rate is still at 4 and like basically like 5%, 4 3/4.
I think I'm probably looking past current conditions, and I'm just thinking about the future. And we're in a fiscally constrained time. So why is it that the president is hell bent on finding a Fed chair that's going to have easy money, because the only way that we can reduce our debt to GDP, that you could even begin to deal with a 6% budget deficit, is to have.
Side note, members, Bitcoin's at the 88.6. So if you were looking at dollar cost average, which I am, this is going to be the first place where I'm going to put some money. So I'm going to do Model 1. I'm going to put in, like, if I had $1,000, I'd put $200 at Model 1. I'd put $300 at Model 2. And then I would put the other the rest of the $500 at Model 3, which will kind of give you an average price of around 90,000, which is way better than buying it at 105. Okay. Not financial advice. Do your own research. Please consult a licensed financial professional. Wow. That's ugly. But it looks like we're finally getting this correction that we've been waiting for. Beautiful stuff. All right.
The lowest funds rate you can possibly have to lower your interest costs, to stimulate growth, et cetera. The only way to reduce debt to GDP is to have, obviously, nominal growth exceed your interest rate. So in a situation like that, particularly given where we are in this economic cycle, where we are now, it's just hard not to see. And I think this is what the market's looking ahead to see: inflation not be rekindled and start up again 6, 12, and in a more serious fashion, 18 months hence. You can kind of see it now. It's again, think of this: we have $370 trillion worth of global financial assets. 370 trillion. So when you come to a market like gold, which is 12 trillion, silver, which is oh my Lord, a fraction of that, Bitcoin, crypto, which is say 2 to 3 trillion. It doesn't take very much. Then you start thinking about the copper markets and some of the other rare earth minerals, and you think about just individual commodities. Good gosh, the ability to elevate those prices because we have so much, again, money and financial assets. It just takes a small tweak to really begin to create a rise in the price level. And I think we'll see that, assuming that we have a new Fed chair who's going to take the funds rate down to 2.5%. And I think the White House is thinking they'd like to see the funds rate at 2.25 to 2.5.
Will we see a significant drop in the dollar from that? Because we had seen, right, in the first half, the biggest drop for the dollar since 1973. That's the year I was born. So a long time ago.
You're a baby.
But we have, thank you. But we have recently seen the dollar recovering, showing a little bit of strength here as people look for, I think, safe haven in that.
Interesting.
Well, look, you've got an FX.
Yeah, we could be looking at serious oil longs here. Serious oil longs. We're down at 57 a barrel here for WTI crude. I'm looking at US oil, 56 or $57 a barrel, sitting right at this buy zone. We're probably going to see a correction here back up. But they were bringing up some oil prices. I was looking here at some of the tariffs. This is a really cool website, by the way, atlanticcouncil.org. They've created this heat map of all the different tariffs that Trump's administration has issued. They have anywhere between 10% to 60%. So the darker the color, the higher the percentage of tariffs. And then they also have this like map right here for pending or threatened tariffs, which is crazy. There's a search bar. They have the targeted sectors with the fact sheet of the individual executive order. This is seriously dope. The biggest thing is obviously India was importing Russian oil. Trump put massive sanctions on India because of this. And I'm just kind of reading through this. I was looking at the price of oil here and seeing how that was impacted. But it looks like their time is up because they made the threat. They said 21 days, and the 21 days has passed. So I'm going to have to look into what India did in response to this. But yeah, long story short, I hopped over to US oil and I see potential long opportunities here up to around $70 a barrel from 56. So maybe I'll put on a paper trade so we can follow up with this later, just so I don't forget. How do I do this? I never trade commodities on spot, so I'm trying to figure this out here just a second. And then we'll put the take profit at about 67 a barrel. Massive jump here. Okay, we'll follow up with this later. Let's go ahead and add this. Add. How do I add this to my favorites? Add alert, add order. There used to be an option here to be able to add this to my list. Maybe it's already on my list. Or not. All right, my bad, guys. Give me one quick second. I'm trying to figure out. I'm blanking on this. All right, let's just do this the old-fashioned way. U.S. oil, WTI crude. Add this to my red list. Okay, cool. We'll check back on this later.
You've got a fiat money debasement going on pretty much virtually around the world, right? The bond vigilantes, though, are being held in check by, again, central banks and populism that are pushing central bankers to run hot. So the currency debasement trade has really turned into a gold trade and a crypto trade, right? Bond vigilante.
He's saying exactly what I was just saying about 10 minutes ago. Currency debasement trade means all the assets go up.
Have been shunted to the back, told, or been put in abeyance, and instead it's manifesting itself in gold and crypto. That's really what's going on. So again, look at the new Prime Minister of Japan. She's already advocating for the BOJ to go slow on normalizing rates. You can't make it up. They've got negative 1.5%, and it's almost like they just want to deny that they have an inflation problem. But so that's what we're seeing. And again, at some point in time, we're going to have some precipitous moments in sovereign debt markets. I don't know whether it's Japanese bond market, the U.S. bond market, but we're going to have some precipitous times. And if you just think about, we're not even close to that yet. We're not even close to that trust moment we had 3 years ago where the currency was under attack, the stock market, the bond market was under attack. Just imagine if and when we get to that day, which I think with 6% budget deficits in the U.S., that day will come. Just imagine what gold and crypto, for that matter, the dollar, imagine what they're all doing. We're in good times now, right?
Even with the shutdown.
Yeah, even with the shutdown, we're in good times now.
I wonder what you think about you mentioned rare earths, and even we can't inflate our way out of that problem, right? J.D. Vance said, we have the cards, but it seems to me China has us between a rock and a hard place. Meredith Whitney put out a note on Sunday, and she says, don't bother being distracted by 100% additional tariffs that President Trump was talking about, because aside from the massive dependence on the U.S. industrial complex for these rare earth minerals and magnets, the U.S. military is 100% dependent on them and is nearly depleted of its reserves. Yeah. What can we do about that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for that one. I wish I did. I really, I don't envy Trump and his cabinet trying to figure out what's going to happen here in 2 weeks. I really don't.
I just think of the strategy that it looks like the White House is following, right? They take a stake in MP Materials. They take a stake in Lithium Americas. They're trying to ramp up mining so they can produce these things. And at the same time, they're taking stakes in private companies. How do you feel about that as a long-term free market capitalist, the U.S. government getting in and picking winners and losers?
I'm not in favor of that. And again, the reason why is it's the same reason. My concerns are I see concentration risk everywhere I look. When now we have individual investors with the highest equity allocation they've ever had in the history of the United States, really 4 times that of the rest of the developed world. So I get nervous about that concentration. I get nervous about the fact that we have 35% of the S&Ps now concentrated in 7 stocks. I get nervous about the fact that this administration, even if all those decisions were smart and correct, again, if you just think about the number one rule of portfolio portfolio management is you want diversification. That's why our founding fathers created us as a democracy, not a monarchy, because you want that contestation of ideas.
Look, Paul, you're really disappointing me this morning. We're not a fucking democracy, but we're a constitutional republic. That's what the framers said. Very different. Much different.
Is. So I'm nervous when I see concentration virtually in anything. Again, whether it's in the stock market, whether it's the composition of the stock market, who owns the stock market, or the decision making that's getting made in Washington. It makes me nervous because I don't think in the long run, right? Even if all the decisions that President Trump making are great, is that going to embolden the next president, who may not make as good of decisions, to do the same thing? So I'll look at that, and again, it raises caution flags for me.
But you're still long stocks right now? You're still long the NASDAQ?
I wouldn't say I'm long at this second. I'm clearly, again, I think there's such a confluence of possibly negative, possibly positive events. I think I want to kind of wait and see where we are in a week or two time. But my belief is that we'll be substantially higher by the end of the year.
All right. So just to end on where we started with the pick a ticker contest for Robinhood, I asked you last.
So in case you missed that, he said he's not particularly long on the NASDAQ right now, meaning he's taking profits and selling just like everybody else, but he does believe it's going to be higher than it is right now by the end of the year. So it's profit-taking season for the big boys, and by the end of the year, they'll be back to buying the dip, and we'll see a rally.
Last time, and I'll ask you again. For players at home, what tips would you give us? What would you put?
I'll probably,
and before you guys on YouTube, because I'm not even worried about the members, but before you guys on YouTube sit there and take this advice that's coming up next and actually do something with it, he's probably about to fucking lie to you. So don't go betting your family's money on whatever he says next.
I think it's going to begin November 1. I'm sure I'll probably be long. The NASDAQ will be my long. Remember.
Okay, that one's kind of valid.
You see, it's really interesting because the last 12 months of a bull market, typically you double the annual gains up until that point in time. But that's to the end of the bull market. So we've got this situation confronting us where the best part of the market's possibly straight ahead, but it's also the most dangerous because it could be the top. So I would probably long the NASDAQ. Would be my long, and I've got to think about what my short would be. It could be it might be the bond market again, though. That'll be a bit boring.
That wouldn't be boring. I'll take it.
Okay.
Glazing. Okay. Well, not bad. It's always good to hear from Paul Tudor Jones. Speaker Johnson holds press conference. This is probably some BS. Anything on the press conference? What are they doing? Senate Majority Leader Thune on the government shutdown.
Defending our country.
John Thune, listen, you don't become Majority House Speaker or like House Majority Speaker, excuse me, or Speaker of the House or the Senate Majority Leader unless you're literally the slimiest of the slimiest politician, the best of the best. The guys that can kind of do it the best liars, the best at taking handout money, And John Thune is one of those. Let's prepare your soul, right? Because you might just fucking catch a virus just listening to this dude for 2 minutes. But I got to hear this.
Sacrifice any American, evidently any principle, to their political goals. President, Democrats like to position themselves as the party of the little guy and the defender of hardworking Americans. But as this vote makes clear, who do Democrats really care about?
This awkward pause. You see these like little time theatric pauses. These are theater kids. These are literally the theater kids. They're in charge.
Democrats. Mr. President, I yield the floor. And I move to proceed to legislative session.
Questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion's agreed to.
Mr. President, I send a cloture motion to the desk.
Clerk will report.
Cloture motion, we the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the standing rules of the Senate.
All right, did want to play out some of those moments that happened there yesterday after that failed.
Oh, hell no. I don't want some political commentary from some mainstream news network. Thank you for your contribution here. Trump, Zelensky. Nope, that's the same link. Venezuela. Give me something on Venezuela, please. Yes, nope. 10 a.m. Sheesh. All right, market is breaking right through that zone. Looks like break evens got hit on that paper trade, but we still have the higher time frame range. This is the most important thing. That's why I told you guys to keep the higher time frame in view. So we either get this double top formation and then we get the short back down, or this thing comes down for a long. So kind of simplify this down for people. Top of the range, bottom of the range. Sell here, buy here. You're welcome. Okay, let's see what other news we have. New York City debate reaction. No. New York City mayoral debate live.
The Homeless Services, it's Darwinian.
Who gives a fuck? DW News. What the hell is this? Dude, what is on my feed right now? Let's see. Oh, I searched up Venezuela and Grazing. See, Trump, Venezuela. This thing is like a hidden story, damn near. We just bombed another boat yesterday. We got CNN because they're clearly trying to shit on Trump. News Nation. Fuck, I guess.
We had a student come in. He signed up for the course.
Okay.
Curious, why did you authorize the CIA to go into Venezuela?
There we go.
And is there more information you can share about these strikes on the alleged?
Well, I can't do
drug
that,
bust in the
but
Caribbean?
I authorized for two reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the, they came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. And as soon as I heard that, I said, a lot of these countries, they're not the only country, but they're the worst abuser. And they've entered they've allowed.
Again, there's a refugee and there's an immigration crisis because we keep destabilizing countries. Those citizens try to flee from political persecution or from economic disparity, and they end up basically just getting displaced into the U.S., adding to the voter base of a specific half of our bicameral fucking system, which benefits only one side. So it's like, okay, go destabilize, start regime change war somewhere. There's economic disparity. Those people become economic and political and, well, I guess just asylum seekers or just political refugees. And they end up setting up shop in the US, becoming voters, and then getting redistricted into districts that help a specific political party. I don't know. Seems like a pretty genius plan to me. But what do I know? All jokes. I'm just a guy.
Thousands and thousands of prisoners, mental institution, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, emptied out into the United States. We're bringing them back. But that's a really bad, and they did it at a level that probably not many countries have done it, but not like Venezuela. They were down and dirty. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela, and a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea. So you get to see that, but we're going to stop them by land also.
Does the CIA have authority to take out Maduro?
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer?
Exclusively.
But I think Venezuela is feeling heat, but I think a lot of other countries are feeling heat too.
Of our national
We're not going to let this country, our country, be ruined because other people want to drop, as you say, their worst. They have given us their worst. They've loaded up our country with prisoners, with mentally ill people that are seriously ill, criminally ill. And we're not going to take it. And so, I mean, it's just one of those things. And I can tell you, we've taken care of the sea. There's nobody, and we're watching. We're watching. And if we see it, we'll save it. Yeah, please.
On the ships, though, sir, there are Republicans and Democrats up on the Hill concerned that in the briefings they've gotten about those attacks, they're not necessarily getting information about who was on them and what exactly was on those ships. Can you?
Well,
ensure that at
but
least-
they are given information that they were loaded up with drugs, and that's the thing that matters. When they're loaded up with drugs, they're fair game. And every one of those ships were, and they're not ships, they're boats, they're speedboats. They're extremely fast, record-setting type speedboats. They cost a lot of money, and they have a lot of money because they're drug sellers. But they know one thing, and they all have the same thing in common. There's drug dust. They call it drug dust. They call it fentanyl dust all over the boat after those bombs go off. And you can take along.
Know that they're.
We know before. We know when they go out. We know we have much information about each boat that goes out. Deep, strong information. Yeah, please.
So you're gonna have Vladimir Zelensky here.
Look, I've just clicked on probably 4 or 5 of the leading kind of reports here from the government, from the DEA, about drug flows into the U.S. I haven't seen Venezuela mentioned one time. Tren de Aragua and MS-13 are both out of El Salvador. They're, again, like I mentioned, it's the Pacific coast that's most of the drugs are coming from. So we have India and China being the 2 biggest culprits, and then Mexico. They obviously cited the Sinaloa and the Jalisco cartels as being kind of the 2 biggest smugglers into the U.S. Still haven't seen Venezuela one time. Just say it's about regime change and move on. Dude, just pretend he has a fucking weapons of mass destruction like you did with Iran. Because this drug thing is like, Google exists, for fuck's sake. Venezuela is not one of the leading importers of drugs into the U.S. Just find a better excuse. We know it's about the oil.
This week is your message at this stage of the war for him, and shy of tomahawks.
To who is that?
For Zelensky.
Yeah.
And shy of tomahawks for Ukraine. Are you considering other options, and will you speak with Vladimir Putin?
No, we're looking at other options. We are. President Zelensky's coming in. I'm not a fan of the war. I'm not a fan of the way it started. It should have never happened. It wouldn't have started if I were president. The election was rigged. And because of that, we lost a lot of lives have been lost because of that war. Not American lives, but if I can save a lot of lives, that's why I'm in it. I want to save lives. I've had 8 wars. The Prime Minister of Pakistan got up the other day, said so beautifully, says, you saved millions of lives. He told that to a group of people right in this office. He said, the president saved millions of lives. And I think what he's referring to is the fact that that would have been with India, a nuclear war. That was getting very close. 7 planes, they don't talk about it, but 7 aircraft were shot down. In fact, we have the new ambassador to India right here. They're well represented. You better represent us, not them. Okay. But Sergio's going to do a great job. He's going to do a great job. But no, we'll be talking about the war with him, and we'll be talking about. I mean, they want to go offensive. I'll make a determination on that, but they would like to go offensive. You know that. and we'll have to make a determination.
Actually, given the FBI director in general here today, Jim Jordan has asked Jack Smith to appear in front of the House Judiciary.
You mean deranged, Jack? He's a deranged individual.
He's asked.
Well, they should. I'm surprised it takes so long. You know, we're talking about violent crime. What about the crime against a political opponent? That's what we have to talk about too.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based.
No one is fucking downloading News Nation, Chris Cuomo. Okay. Dude, Trump's ability to both compliment and throw his people under the bus is incredible. Like 2 days ago, he was just at I think he was at the Knesset in Israel, and he was just basically like calling out his two biggest donors, or his Miriam Adelson being his largest donor, and basically just like outing the fact that his Israel affinity and his policies have basically come from the fact that Miriam Adelson, who is a massive Zionist and one of the largest donors to the Republican Party, was his donor. It's like basically he's just like admitted to being a puppet of this Israel First billionaire mega donor, and then like said it out loud, but kind of like in a way to put him on blast, but also as a compliment. So I don't know. Trump is a special thing, you know. It's really hard to understand him. Do I really want to listen to Mike Johnson? Probably not. Let's see if there's anything else economy related. Trump says we're at war with China now. Andrew Ross Sorkin. Do I really want to listen to Andrew Ross Sorkin? Ah, fuck. Like sometimes. All right, we'll give this like 5 minutes.
Hey, Sorkin, I just went through the comments. The one question keeps coming up over again. Why the fuck are you writing this book? Jesus Christ, what a party pooper.
What a party pooper. I don't know, man. I think it's supposed to be the book's supposed to be like a beach read.
A beach read?
Yes.
Come on, did you read it?
Okay, so what a fucking clickbait. He was trying to equate what's happening now to the 1929, which is the Great Depression, in case you guys didn't know. And so he's basically just trying to say, like, right now, this AI bubble bursting is going to be just like the Great Depression. And that's why they're calling him a party pooper, all this other shit. Dude, you're writing a book. All right, no wonder you're being like anyone who's ever doom and gloom, you have to see their portfolio. That's why I like public market investors, because they have to disclose their positions, and then quarterly they'll disclose their short positions. And if your money is not where your mouth is, shut the fuck up about calling bear markets and calling for the turn of the century and then bad news bears. No bad news bears. All right. If I see you positioned on the short side, then I'll take you seriously. But this guy's writing a book. I highly doubt he's shorting the markets.
And I just went through the comments. The one question keeps coming up over again. Why the at what point did you say, hey, I want tonight to talk about this?
Chamath, you're going to love these characters. I kid you not. I kid you not. The people who are involved in this at that time, like the main character.
I totally agree with you. I am.
By the way, just a heads up, I know it says sell zone, but this was kind of referring to the shorts that I was looking for up here. The market is very, very likely to break through all these levels today. This is just an intuitive hunch, I'll be honest. Like, number one, we have the evidence of just the sheer momentum of this market. And so just the assumption should always be that markets in motion will remain at motion unless some shit happens. This is kind of like, I know I'm paraphrasing here, but this is more of an intuitive hunch here, that obviously we're going to get all of these short-term sort of 88.6 sells in between these little zones, but I'm very confident the markets are just going to break through. I would just leave this thing alone for today. If you guys find your positions, you guys have good risk management skills, you can take a crack at this personally. It ain't even worth the headache. It's like, just wait till Monday and trade the markets normally. But yeah, if you guys do decide to take any of these short, do not overstay your welcome. That's all I'm going to say.
To be honest, I've studied this period for a while, actually. I think it's great that you wrote this book. I think it's incredibly fascinating. We're here with Andrew Ross Sorkin, Chamath and I, with another all-in interview. Riveting. Today, we're going to talk about Andrew's new book, 1929, and specifically cover why Andrew got into it, what the history teaches us, and
Are we looking at another 1929 or something different this day and age? As a lot of people may speculate. But Andrew, thanks for joining Chamath and I to talk about this.
Thank you for having me. And I love your background there.
Thank you.
A true image of what was actually happening in October of 1929, crazily enough.
That's right. And it was colorized by some AI or something, I think. But yeah, great. How and why did you get into this era of 1929, the great stock market crash of 1929? Like, you're a busy guy. You're on TV every day. We see you all over. You're at conferences. I saw you at a conference in Southern California this week. Then you're at another conference and you're back in New York. You're very busy. At what point did you say, hey, I want to sit down and write a book about this era?
Okay, so here's what happened to me. So I'd written that book, Too Big to Fail, about the 2008 financial crisis.
Right.
And people used to always say to me after that, they'd get into these like very in-depth conversations about 1929, or they'd want to know more about 1929. And most people know that something terrible happened in 1929. They know there was a crash in 1929. They oftentimes think it like is the Great Depression or leads to the Great Depression. But if you were to ever ask most people, now Chamath and you are maybe in a different category, and say, well, who were the people who actually were engaged in this? What were they saying to each other? Who was sleeping with who? Who was trying to fuck over who? What was actually happening
Well, if
here?
I said the answer, I'd get
And
kicked off.
what were the incentives and what were the motivations that led to what clearly were some poor decisions? I couldn't find that. So I went on a vacation like 10 years ago with my wife, very nerdy, and I like downloaded all these books to my Kindle. And there's some great books, by the way, about this period. Don't get me wrong. But they didn't have the sort of character-driven story. Like, I loved Den of Thieves. I loved Barbarians at the Gate. I loved stories about people.
Fabulous books. Fabulous books. What did your wife think when you ignored her the entire vacation you guys were on and were just reading books on your Kindle?
I'm pretty sure Charles Schwab, who was there in person, wrote a memoir detailing exactly what happened in that fateful meeting, 1913 in Jekyll Island, when we formed the Federal Reserve, the Bank of Morgan, and kind of like the other top mafia conglomerates of the banking cartel at the time, and formed the Federal Reserve. And then through speculation and through just sheer leverage, mania, and I guess hype in general, that's what led to the Great Depression. That's what led to the crash. So yeah, there have been plenty of books written. God, thank you, God, that Andrew Ross Sorkin is here to give us the real rundown on the Great Depression and the stock market crash. If it wasn't for Andrew, the greatest historian that this country has to offer, how did we get this lucky and this blessed that we've been waiting for 100 years to crack the understanding of this most important financial event in American history? And finally, by the prayers and the answers of God, we have Andrew Ross Sorkin here to finally crack this riddle for us. Go fuck yourself, Andrew Ross Sorkin.
I mean, I think she thought I was out of my mind.
Read a book. Don't write one.
But no, so I read these books and I was like, okay, where's the story? Where are the people?
Before you get to the people, can you give people?
He clearly didn't read a single guide. I'm willing to bet my left toe this man didn't read a single book about, maybe one, like some bullshit written about. He didn't read a book.
A concise I was going to ask you for a TikTok of the overarching economic issues before we get to the sort of the characters. Because I think what, to your point, which is an important one, people think it was like stocks went down.
Right.
But the other things like the overproduction of the economy, tightening interest rates, the war debt, like all of this stuff was just commingled and nobody fully understands that. Can you maybe give folks a precise representation?
There's an entire economics, I'm sorry, this is the last thing I'll say. There's an entire economics department at Harvard that would probably disagree with you that nobody understands this thing. But what do you think this is the first year of you go to finance school, they'll teach you about the Great Depression. They'll teach you about the over leveraging. They'll teach you about the tulip mania, which was the original sort of like bubble, and then how that led into modern markets after they were created, in the early 1900s, and how that led to the Great Depression. Literally, any intro finance college student could tell you the history. So no one really knows what happened. Read a book, for fuck's sake.
The setup,
or maybe not. These guys are billionaires. Not Andrew, but Chamath is. So maybe you don't read a book. I don't know.
the setup.
Okay, so let's just go back. Let's go back to 1919, because actually I think that's a critical year. So prior to 1919 in America, people did not really borrow money. It was like a moral sin to get credit. Like people didn't do it. In 1919,
I lied. Last comment. Yeah, in Christianity, it's called usury. All right, now I'm getting kicked off YouTube.
General Motors says, you know what? We're going to start lending people money so that you can buy a car. And that was actually like a major inflection point in America. Because then Sears Roebuck clocks what's going on and says, okay, we're going to do this too for appliances. And then a guy named Charlie Mitchell, who ran a bank called National City, which becomes Citigroup, says, you know what? We can do this for stocks. So we, and all of a sudden brokerage houses are opening up, on the corners of streets the way we see Starbucks today. It's like literally like that. And you could go into one of these places and you could put $1 down and they would literally loan you $10 off of your dollar. I mean, that's how insane things were. And at the time,
There was no risk underwriting of any kind.
Zero risk underwriting.
Nobody understood what they were.
By the way, there's no SEC, there's no regulations. Somebody who read this book early said, oh, in your research, did you get a chance to read any of the prospectuses for the companies? I was like, prospectuses? Like if there was like a leaflet that they handed out on the street, you'd be lucky. So there's nothing. And it's just like a complete go-go era. Forget about 1929. In 1928, the stock market went up 48%. So people are there's just sort of like this, it's a little bit of the Chuck Prince, when the music's playing, you're dancing and everybody's dancing and nobody's even thinking about the music stopping, kind of like ever. Now, meanwhile, there's also these technological changes. I mean, huge generational technological changes. In the same way, I think we're probably talking about like AI today, radio. So RCA was like the NVIDIA of its time. Everybody wanted into RCA. The stock ticker was radio because it was like it was like going to change the world. And the other big piece of this was also similar to today, this idea of democratizing finance. It was like, okay, the elites have had their way. They've made all the money. We're now going to let everybody in on the action. Now, the difference between then and now, though, was there was also like crazy amounts of manipulation, insider trading.
All right, gang. Well, it doesn't look like I'll be taking any trades today. Like I said, there's going to be scalps along the way. You can just look at any of these impulses. I'd say let's take this bearish impulse. You can fib from body to wick. You can find your entry zone. And there's going to be some scalps along the way, but I'm very confident the market is going to continue to break highs today. So if you do get on the short side, I would definitely kind of use it as a scalp. I wouldn't overstay my welcome at all. And if the market does end up at the bottom of the daily range, then perfect buying opportunities at the bottom. All right. Now, we do already have a double bottom here. So the third one will probably just be a light rejection and a grab for liquidity. Okay. So whatever trade you guys take, whether it is the buys on the retest or the shorts at the top of the range here, don't overstay your welcome. Trade the range. All right, buy low, sell high. You guys know the drill. You guys have any questions before we hop off? I was going to stay on a bit longer, kind of see what the market gives us, but it's pretty clear what's going to be here. We got re-entries for longs at the retest, and then we have potential shorts, both scalps. Don't overstay your welcome. Christine, great to see you on the call today. Giordano, good call this morning. Maurice, two-step. Let's see who else we got. Devaney, George, John, Bobby. Got a pretty good crew here today. All right, y'all. Happy and safe trading, everybody. Let's take this conversation into the VIP chats. And if you already made money, walk away. If you guys hit your loss for the day or whatever it was, walk away. If you made money for the week and you're thinking about giving some of it back, don't do it. Keep the money. Name of the game. Crush it, everybody. Happy and safe trading today.